Are you anti-Muslim?
I'm against having if people are coming to a country with antithetical views. I am against that. I'm against that. You know, I'm against I'm against rape and murder. I'm against the imposition of rules and laws that are contrary to what we've come to accept in the West.
Now, there's a lot of fallout to that, not least because, as he was saying this, new numbers came out which showed that the murder rate in England has dropped to its lowest in 50 years. So this idea, which people like Elon seem to have convinced themselves have been correct, which is that, you know, our motherland is being run over, particularly by Muslims who are raping, pillaging and murdering everybody, is not borne out by statistical evidence. So there's that. Now, Zanny Minton-Beddoes, as I said on NBC, it's irresponsible for someone with 240 million followers.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Truth Review. I'm Hayes, and this exchange between Mehdi Hasan and Piers Morgan's panel deserves a careful breakdown because there are several specific factual claims here that need checking. Elon Musk was asked directly whether he's anti-Muslim, and instead of a clear answer, he gave a response that framed Muslim immigration around rape and murder. Mehdi Hasan then broke down the fallout, including a claim about crime statistics in England, and challenged Steve Hilton directly on his public response, or lack of one, to a documented terrorist attack on a mosque in San Diego. Hit subscribe because Truth Review checks every statistic and every silence. Now let's get into it.
Okay, Mehdi, I just want to slightly switch to something that is still involved in all this. The Elon Musk interview, which came out of the weekend with Zanny Minton-Beddoes from The Economist, editor-in-chief there. A lot of news lines were made from this, some about AI and so on and so on. But there was a clip of him talking about Muslims. I wanted to play to you, given you're a Muslim.
Are you anti-Muslim?
I'm against having if people are coming to a country with antithetical views. I am against that. I'm against that. You know, I'm against I'm against rape and murder. I'm against the imposition of rules and laws that are contrary to what we've come to accept in the West.
Now, there's a lot of fallout to that, not least because, as he was saying this, new numbers came out which showed that the murder rate in England has dropped to its lowest in 50 years. So this idea, which people like Elon seem to have convinced themselves have been correct, which is that, you know, our motherland is being run over, particularly by Muslims who are raping, pillaging and murdering everybody, is not borne out by statistical evidence. So there's that. Now, Zanny Minton-Beddoes, as I said on NBC, it's irresponsible for someone with 240 million followers, Elon, to propagate things that are simply not true. And he responded to that huge number of his followers by saying she is a traitor to the West, plain and simple. Yes. I mean, that is strong stuff, isn't it? What did you make of all this?
I mean, that's an understatement, but it's not strong stuff. It's outrageous, ridiculous, dangerous stuff. He knows perfectly well that he's putting a target on our back. When Elon Musk attacks people, and I've been attacked by him, you know what happens with his followers. He has a very cultish following like Trump does. It's very dangerous, and it's a ridiculous response, by the way. More than the news lines from that Economist interview was Musk himself and how he handled it. I think the aftermath and the fallout from the interview is more interesting than the interview, because this is the world's richest man who claims to be for free speech, claims to be for debate, but anytime he gets even the mildest of questions, he has a total meltdown. First of all, he rarely does interviews. I know he hasn't done an interview with you. You've been desperate to get one. He doesn't do tough interviews. He melts down when he gets semi-tough questions. Do you remember when Don Lemon interviewed him in 2024? He almost started crying during the interview and then cancelled Don Lemon's show as a punishment for Don asking him questions about his drug use. And now you have The Economist, very sober, mainstream, centrist publication, not woke left at all, as he might say. And he calls this woman, the editor of The Economist, a traitor, simply for pointing out that he doesn't know what he's talking about when it comes to British and London crime stats. The three of us are Brits, two of us are British Americans. We all know here in the US, I'm sure Steve gets asked by Republicans, oh, Britain, it's a hellscape, isn't it? And it's not a hellscape, as we all know. And it's ridiculous that he pushes this bullshit. And on the Muslim line, thank you, Zanny Minton-Meadows, too many journalists ignore the anti-Muslim rhetoric at the heart of the Musk movement and support for the far right. This is a man who funds Tommy Robinson, who supported Rupert Lowe, two of the most anti-Muslim voices in the UK, if not the West. And when he's asked this straight question, are you anti-Muslim? All he has to say is, no, I'm not. All he has to say was, I'm against anti-Muslim prejudice. All he has to say was, oh, I'm against criminals. I'm against extremists. That's all he had to say, Piers. But he couldn't do it. Instead, he says, I'm against people who have antithetical views coming into this country. I'm against rape and murder, suggesting Muslims are all guilty of rape and murder. Can you imagine if somebody asked Elon Musk or anyone prominent, are you anti-Jewish? And they didn't just say no. They said, well, I'm against people with different views. I'm against rape and murder. It's an outrageously bigoted thing to say by the richest man in the world. I'm glad she asked it. I'm sad that not enough journalists have followed up on that fact. That Elon Musk, the top donor to the Republican Party and Donald Trump, the richest man in the world, the owner of one of the most influential messaging platforms, is an anti-Muslim bigot. And that's not me calling him that. That's him embracing it.
Steve Hilton, what did you make of that? I mean, look, you know Britain as well as I do.
Yeah.
This weird narrative that Elon and many on the right in America seem to have developed, that we're getting literally invaded and overrun by Muslims, you know that's not true. What do you say to people when they say this to you?
So it's interesting. I hadn't actually seen that clip. I was aware of the interview. I hadn't really followed it. But yes, I think that this is there's a characterization that actually misses the real problem with what's going on in the UK, I think. Obviously, I have an interest in that. Don't follow it closely. But there's something I say on the campaign trail, actually, which is that I don't want this state that I love to turn into the country I left. But what I mean by that is what you're seeing, I think. There was a report that someone sent to me, one of the biggest figures in business in California, sent me a research report on what's going on in the UK economically, with the inability to build housing, the inability to improve energy infrastructure, the cost of everything, the bloat and bureaucracy and hassle of doing anything in the UK, which I think has produced, I mean, you'll know in more detail, Piers, but a sense of an economic, stagnation that probably is a really big part of why you get all this kind of sentiment. People are just frustrated with what's going on. And this person sent me that report and says, remind you of anywhere. And it does, because that's the way we're heading in California, with this bloated bureaucratic government that's making it impossible to do anything. And so in that sense, I think that that's the real point, I think.
Can I ask a question of Steve just on this subject? In May, there was an attack on a mosque in San Diego. 3 Muslims were murdered. It could have been 100 Muslim school kids murdered in a school nearby. It was 2 neo-Nazi white supremacists. In the past, you've been very vocal in condemning white nationalists. I remember you condemned the attack on the mosque in New Zealand back in 2019. This time, you're running for governor of California, massive terrorist attack against Muslims in your state. I didn't hear a word from you. I tried to look up what you said about it. I couldn't find a single posting.
I was there that day, actually. Funnily enough, Mehdi, I was actually there. I was very close by when it happened. And we went and spoke to local community leaders. Now, you may not have seen anything I said. We had a town hall that day, and I spoke about it. I was actually right there. Just a couple of miles,
because there's not a single post from you about it that I could find. So I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
I mean, I don't necessarily kind of express every thought on everything all the time.
Let's break down what actually happened here, because there are specific claims worth checking individually before we get to the broader argument. Start with the murder rate statistic, because this is the most concrete factual claim in the entire exchange. It was stated that new figures showed England's murder rate had dropped to its lowest level in 50 years, contradicting the narrative that the country is experiencing a surge in violent crime tied to immigration. This claim tracks with reporting from that period. Office for National Statistics data around this time frame did show homicide rates in England and Wales at historically low levels compared to previous decades. That context matters directly because if violent crime statistics are trending downward overall, then broad claims about a specific immigrant population driving a crime wave don't hold up against the aggregate national data, regardless of how confidently those claims get stated. Now to Musk's actual answer, because the way he responded is worth examining on its own terms rather than through anyone else's characterization of it. When asked directly whether he is anti-Muslim, he did not say no. He instead described opposition to people entering a country with what he called antithetical views, followed immediately by saying he's against rape and murder. The rhetorical structure there matters. By answering a question specifically about Muslims with a statement invoking rape and murder in the same breath, without any qualifying language separating the two, the response functions as an implicit association between the group being asked about and those specific crimes, whether or not that was the deliberate intention. A direct answer to that question, if the underlying position were simply opposition to criminals or extremists rather than Muslims as a group, would have been straightforward to state clearly. It wasn't. The Steve Hilton exchange is the part of this segment that deserves the most scrutiny, because it's built entirely around a documented public record that's easy to verify. Mehdi Hasan referenced an attack on a mosque in San Diego in May, carried out by two individuals identified as neo-Nazi white supremacists, which resulted in 3 deaths and could have been far more severe given that a school with a significant number of Muslim children was nearby. Hilton, running for governor of California at the time, had previously spoken out publicly against a similar attack on a mosque in New Zealand in 2019. Mehdi's specific claim was that he could not find any public statement or social media post from Hilton addressing this California attack, despite Hilton's prior public record of condemning comparable violence. Hilton's response confirmed. He was physically near the location and said he addressed it at a town hall that day, but did not point to any public statement, post, or press release matching the scale of his prior public response to the New Zealand attack. That gap between the two responses, one public and widely documented, one described only as a private town hall remark, is the specific inconsistency being raised, and it's a fair and checkable point rather than an assumption. Subscribe to Truth Review. We check the statistics, we check the public record, and we check what actually got said versus what should have been said clearly and wasn't.